What I'm quite interested in is how people identify with, I guess, conditions that they have in their eyes. So some people with nystagmus, regardless of what the cause is, will consider themselves a person with nystagmus, and the rest is all just sort of background bits and bobs. Whereas some people really identify with the actual condition underlying it. So an extreme example might be someone with a profound retinal problem, so a real problem with their vision. Vision's really poor from a very young age, and they might not see any colour, etc., legally blind from a young age. But then if they have nystagmus, they might still consider themselves a person with nystagmus with a retinal problem, or the other way around. It also, interestingly, I think with identity, there's a difference between people who have very obvious forms of albinism or people who have less obvious forms of albinism, and almost a sort of tribal thing. I was wondering what you thought about that.
I think it's really interesting. I know people who have other eye conditions as well, and it does surprise me that some people identify not as what you'd think. Like you said, some like people who have like retinal issues who don't really have much vision will identify as someone with nystagmus. But then you've got people who that's like the least of their worries, and they are just like a visually impaired person. I think in the albinism community, it's a very hot topic because it's sometimes divides people as well, which is a bit sad. And I'm obviously coming at it from my point of view, and I guess my point of view is that I think as I get older, I'm becoming a bit more understanding. But when I was younger, I think I struggled with people who didn't have what society would see as albinism, which I guess is me, and they identify themselves as people with albinism but don't look like they do. And I think I struggled with, why would you want to do that? Because quite often it's the negative parts that you focus in on, and negative experiences that you've had when you're younger, that I think make you not want to be part of a group. So for a very long time, when my parents, they were always members of the Albinism Fellowship, so I've grown up in that organisation. But when I was young, when I was like 6 or 7, they took me to my first like meeting kind of thing, and they were like, why don't you just go off and play with all the kids with white hair? Because in those days that's mainly what it was, because there wasn't all the genetic testing and stuff. But I didn't want to at that age go off and play with kids that look like me, because at that point already society had already told me that it wasn't okay to be me. So when I saw kids that looked like me, instead of it being positive, I saw what other people saw in me in them, and I didn't like it. So for ages, I didn't want to identify as having albinism or part of that community. And so I really struggled why anyone who had a different type of albinism that didn't look like me would want to. But now
really interesting, isn't it?
I understand it now.
Yeah. It is interesting, isn't it? Because as you say, we hear very different things from different people, and I think a lot of it is experience-based, right? I suppose we're not psychologists, right? But I suppose some element of wanting to identify with the group is having commonality. So if somebody has completely different eye features or no eye features, and that doesn't have the hair, the skin that looks the same as you feel as if actually that's not my tribe. And there's quite a lot talked about in terms of tribe, isn't there? People use that in descriptions in books. I've read a few books, people with albinism, they describe that whole phenomenon. But it's really interesting to me to see that some people go really far one way, some go really far another. So again, when we travel around the world and we speak to patients in different parts of the world, there's some parts of the world particularly where the nystagmus is the obvious thing, the wiggly eyes, the most obvious thing. So they absolutely identify as someone with nystagmus, and they actually might not even have any inclination to look into why. No inclination to look at the other features, what it means, what the genetics are, what you might pass on the family, what you might not, what the future might hold. It's all just about having that group of people that you belong to who have eyes that move. So, and there's no right and wrong here, is there? I just find it quite interesting. It'd be really interesting to get a psychologist's view, I think, on this sort of identity thing.
I think it's to do with your experiences. It's a lot to do with like your experiences in your formative years as well, because if so you just have nystagmus and you wouldn't necessarily know you have albinism and whatever part of the world you're from, and you really identify as that, it's probably because when you were younger, that was the thing that made you feel so different to other people and that everyone picked up on. And so being with other people or engaging with that makes you feel like you're not on your own, because that's just a human desire to not want to be the only person. Probably, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know either. But for me, like I don't sort of go down the nystagmus identity route, because for me, it's not really a thing. I mean, it is a thing, I've got it, but I don't think about it, and I don't really, it doesn't impact me. I mean, it does impact me, but I don't notice so much that it impacts me, rather than other things do, I think. So for me, it's not my identity. My identity is someone who has albinism. But then I know people who which I think is really sad, who have different types of albinism but feel like they can't be part of the community because they don't look a certain way. And I feel like there are more similarities than there are differences with people. I think people don't necessarily realize that it's a community that everybody should be welcome into, and I feel like you're already separated enough. Everyone should be as welcome as each other.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Yeah, completely agree with that. And I think it's interesting what you say about the change, your opinions changing through a life course. I just think that's quite common. I would guess that when you're young, you want anything that makes you different to your pals to just go away. And then there probably is periods in your life where you actually quite relish those differences a little bit. So you might have a bit more ownership of it. And then you might feel that you've got a part of a community if you have that particular trait or that particular thing that you think makes you part of that community. Then you might not want to have that. God, it's complicated, isn't it?
Very complicated.
Yeah, good job we're not psychologists.
I know.
But I think you're right. The key message is, if people are informed enough, they understand that there's huge differences between everybody's experience of everything. But actually, what brings everyone together is common features, common experiences, and you should absolutely let people be part of whatever group or identity they think they want to be part of.
Absolutely.